Hello, I'm Jacob Crandall. Today I'm talking with my father, Craig Crandall, an advocate for disability rights in public places. Today we will be unpacking the struggles with the law and his impact through his work.
So, I kind of backed into it because, in public places, a lot of times I've encountered obstacles for someone in a wheelchair and really didn't know how to address these challenges until I found a lawyer that specializes in disability rights. And I discovered at that time that the only option to get someone to actually adhere to disability standards is through civil action. So, in other words, suing them. While we do have the Disability Rights Bill, the only enforcement in that bill is through civil action. So the only way that you can get somebody to take action and take care of obstacles for people in wheelchairs, according to the law, is to pursue civil action with them. So that's the path that I've started to pursue.
So, do you like our current system that requires a civil lawsuit for effect or any action to take place?
I know that it was politically expedient at the time to get a bill passed because there was a lot of headwinds to getting the bill passed. So it was a means to an end. But the reality is right now, having to literally sue someone to make sure that their business or, a school, any public facility is accessible is really over the top. There should be a more streamlined way through building codes, building enforcement, those methods to make sure that we have disability access in public places.
And what would you like to see our government do and change these laws? Like, how would you like them to create something that would be more cohesive for change?
So, it's a federal statute, and I know that building codes are at the state and local level. So I don't know the mechanics of how this would happen, but ultimately at the end of the day, to have disability access written right into building codes and ongoing enforcement would be the ideal way to have this happen. Because right now, whether you're a small business, a large business, you can almost completely ignore, well, you can completely ignore disability rights. And the only time that you'll get into trouble is if an individual has the wherewithal and access to an appropriate lawyer to file a lawsuit. So making it more mainstream so that we just all have to adhere to disability standards would be fantastic.
Would you say that your lawsuits are still able to affect change?
Yeah, and frankly, the approach that I take is if it's a small business, I just have a very frank conversation with them and say, there are people out there that will come in and sue you for the purpose of making a buck, okay? And that's not my goal here. My goal is to drive change. If it's a small company, I know that between the cost of the lawsuit and then the cost of repairs could put a small business out of business. So I tend to try and be proactive with those folks, have a constructive conversation. But, it's frankly a lot of the larger companies out there. And, it's public record that I have sued Starbucks multiple times. And as a result, in each instance where I sue them, they have to make remediations to that property. So for each and every property that I sue, we do make a change there. And I do feel like through the repeated time after time after time of suing Starbucks location after Starbucks location, that they are starting to lean in now and make sure that their properties are more accessible.
And how many lawsuits do you think that finally took with you and them, and just in general against other people to finally get that change to go through?
At Starbucks, I don't remember the exact number, but it's around 10 locations that we have sued. Other businesses, they tend to lean in a little bit quicker on changes. And, frankly, I've gone to retail stores, even schools that, Jake, when you were younger, went and visited schools and they were clearly not accessible. And while you kind of hate to have a school redirect resources to make their property accessible rather than focusing on education, still there are kids in the school system that need accessibility. So my focus is always on quickly getting them to make change, not racking up all sorts of legal bills. And an important thing that I also do is a default settlement is always there for the person with a disability. Whenever I get paid that default settlement, it goes straight into a charity. I never take a dime from any of these lawsuits. My focus is strictly on making change, making things better.
Would you say that's been able to help you out in cases by donating the money?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of these corporations say, "Oh, he's just here for the money," and then when I highlight and show proof that I've made considerable donations to a charity as a result of these lawsuits, it very quickly changes the tone of that conversation from someone that is strictly here to make a change to someone that's looking to profit from the situation.
Would you say that certain people are out there definitely to make a buck or doing this just for the money?
I'm sure that there are, okay? And there are individuals that, first of all, keep in mind that when you have a disability, like being in a wheelchair, the unemployment rate for disability people is considerably higher than the rest of the population because people perceive us as not being capable of doing different jobs. So there are some people out there with disabilities that really find it difficult to find proper employment. And this is a way, frankly, to supplement their income. So they're still doing it to make change, but, on the other hand, it is a source of income for them. So, and again, that's not an ideal situation for how we enforce laws. And then it also gives the whole purpose of the law, it skews it because, I'm out there doing these lawsuits specifically to make change. Now, there are people out there arguing that it's creating frivolous lawsuits by people just using this as an avenue to make money. So that's one of the challenges is the lawyers that are out there saying, "Oh, there's all these people out there trying to make money from this lawsuit," whereas I'm just out there trying to make change, and it makes it that much more difficult for me as they start to try and implement different laws to restrict our rights to go off and enforce these ADA laws.
No, I've noticed a recent uptick in news stories saying with like recently Donald Trump repealing certain bills for ADA laws. Have you seen a recent uptick in laws that you'd consider almost discriminatory against ADA people?
Um, it was interesting because just recently I got a new car and needed hand controls for that car and found out that, oh, there's some new guidelines out there from the state that says you have to pass a driver certification for hand controls, even though I've literally been driving with hand controls for 20 years. There's no way to grandfather that in. So, in that case, I'm sure it was the insurance companies trying to reduce their liability to having to insure people with disabilities by putting obstacles in our way to be able to drive. Now, if you look at somebody, back to people with disabilities, they don't have access to great employment. They have challenges there. And now if you put even more obstacles in their way to being able to drive to get a job, that's just going to hinder the disability community that much more.
No, definitely. It seems like it's becoming really hard. And I'm curious, what would you say one of your most impactful lawsuits has been in recent history?
I don't think that anyone stands alone as particularly impactful, other than as you look at the accumulation effect of the multiple lawsuits together, with Starbucks has created some change. So I don't think I could identify anyone, but it's the cumulative effect of what I've been doing that I think has been driving the change.
Well, that's going to be our time. I'm Jake Crandall. Thank you for listening. This has been Craig Crandall talking about ADA lawsuits and the change that he's been able to effect. Thank you for tuning in.